This is Toby Adonijah, and if you haven't seen the birth vlog over on our family channel, I will put that in the description below so you can go and see more of the details and everything of what actually happened. But I today just wanted to share a little bit about the short little details that are important to me and how the birthing process went. On Friday night, we had company over. We hosted dinner. We just did pizza. We'd ordered out, so something simple. But while I was chopping vegetables for us to munch on alongside the pizza, I was timing contractions. And while company was over, I was timing contractions. And they were about every 4.5 minutes apart, but they weren't painful. And so I was like, all right, this probably isn't like the real deal. I'll keep on timing them just to see what happens. But by the end of the evening, when we were done eating and we were just relaxing on the couch, they really spaced out and pretty much stopped. So I was like, all right, that was really disappointing. That was definitely like false labor, and the first time I've experienced false labor. So I was pretty bummed that there wasn't any action going to happen that night. But then at 3 a.m., I was woken up by some contractions, and they were coming about every 8 to 9 minutes. And I went ahead and tried to sleep as much as I could through them. But they were waking me up every single time, and I was getting anxious and started to get hungry, so I got up and got me a snack and just kept on timing contractions. And while I was up, they started coming closer about every 4.5 minutes. And then by about 5 o'clock a.m., I was just exhausted, and so I went ahead and laid on the couch and tried to sleep through the contractions, and they slowed back down to every 8 or 9 minutes and woke me up every single time there was a contraction. But in between, I slept. I was so exhausted. So that happened from 5 to 7. And then 7 in the morning, Zeke was up, and then I went ahead and got breakfast for the two of us and the rest of the family when they started waking up. And by that time, when I got up again, the contractions started coming every 4.5 minutes apart as well. And they started becoming more difficult, and I would have to stop what I was doing and breathe through them, and I would massage my stomach because it was hurting through the contractions, and trying to just remind myself, like, my first initial response every time a contraction would happen was to, like, tighten up and get tense with my stomach muscles. So instead, like, when I was breathing through, I tried to remind myself to relax and let gravity and the contractions work on pushing him down. So during that, like, my contractions, like, I would go sit down and rest a little bit, and the contractions would slow up. And so finally I just decided, like, okay, for half an hour I'm going to be up on my feet, we're going to see what happens. And so for half an hour they were coming every 4.5 minutes, and I finally called the doctor and I was like, hey, this is what's going on, because I was really curious, and I really just wanted to go to the hospital and get permission to go to the hospital and see if I had progressed at all. And I was expecting to be at 1 centimeter when we arrived at the hospital, because that's where I was with Hallie after timing contractions for the whole day before she was born. So we had the kids go wake up Nicole so she could come up and be with the kids so Tim and I could go to the hospital. And we got there, and the nurse checked me, and I was already at 6 centimeters, which shocked me. I was very thankful and very surprised that I had already progressed to 6 centimeters, and I'd done that at home. And I was pretty much laboring on my own because Tim was working with the kids and making sure that they weren't bothering me while I was trying to breathe through contractions. So they went ahead and admitted us and put us into our room where Toby would be born. I think I labored pretty much on my own again while we were in the room, because it felt a whole lot better if I would just stand and kind of rock back and forth and just breathe through the contractions. I actually handle contractions a little bit better when I do it on my own. I did that mostly with Zeke's birth as well, because Tim was out of the house on a Wednesday night working with the youth in our church. And I realized, like, looking back at that and then back at Hannah and Hallie's births, like, if Tim is there with me when a contraction's going, then I tend to, like, blame all the pain on him, and then I just don't handle the pain well. But if I'm, like, focused and concentrating on it, like, just working through it on my own, like, that's great. Tim did come in handy every time I had to lay on the bed when they checked me, and then had to, like, put my IV on and everything. Like, they made me lay in the bed for that, which I was not looking forward to. And I was mostly feeling my pain in my lower abdomen and then in my thighs, like on top of my leg. And so I knew like every single time that I would go and sit down, it would spur off a contraction. No matter like how close to the last one was, it would just set one off. And so I always had to massage my legs to get me through the contraction because they were painful when you're laying down and not standing up. I think we were in the hospital room for about an hour before the nurse was like, all right, now I'll put your order in for the epidural. And for a second there, I was like, hang on, do you mind checking me to see how far along I am before ordering the epidural? Because at that point, I was still handling the contractions really well. And the nurse even said, like, I wouldn't even know you were in labor until you were having a contraction. And even when you're having a contraction, you're handling them really, really well. I kind of have Anna Catalan to thank for handling my contractions so well. I even texted her that morning and was like, I keep on picturing like the strength that I saw in you during your home birth video while I'm going through these contractions, and just the strength that you have. And I'm kind of drawing the strength from her to get through my contractions. So I'll put a link in the description below as well so you can go watch their birth video. And she just did amazing. The nurse checked me and I was at 8 centimeters. And at that point I was like, yeah, we'll go ahead and get the epidural, because I still had 2 centimeters to go. And the contractions were not on top of each other like they are at the very end. So I went ahead and got it. And I didn't realize until I think yesterday I was talking to somebody, I was like, that was a really like dangerous thing to do, have her check me before getting the anesthesiologist in there, because had I been further along, I wouldn't have been able to get that epidural. So yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I know what I was thinking. I was thinking I could go natural if I was further along and handling everything as well as I had been. So, but my 2 contractions right before the anesthesiologist got the epidural in were a whole lot stronger and harder to handle. So I was very glad that I got the epidural. And I was able to relax, and I even took a nap, which was very nice and useful. And you are filling up your diaper. That was rude. Just kidding. We cheer on diapers at this stage because that means that their bodies are doing what they're supposed to. So I got the epidural at around 10:30 in the morning. Tim had predicted that Toby was going to be born by 1, and he probably could have been, but we had to convince the nurse and the doctor that my water never breaks on its own. And the nurse had just been like waiting for my water to break on its own, and it just wasn't going to happen. And so finally at like 3:30 in the afternoon, they broke my water, which finally got me to my last centimeter and got us to be able to push him out. So I kind of assumed, like I had even told Tim, I was like, watch, we're going to be sitting here until they break my water. Like nothing else is going to progress until they break the water. And then my body's going to be like, all right, let's get him out. And that's exactly what happened, which is the same thing that has happened with the rest of them. My water just does not break. The doctor said I have very strong membranes, which is good, means that I'm healthy, and they just don't want to break on their own. And if you go and watch our video, you will see how the pushing part went. It only took about 3 pushes to get Toby out. None of my kids ever really took too long to push them out. And the only thing with Toby is that because it only took 3 to get him out, he has been very spitty. He still has a lot of that amniotic fluid in his system. And the nurse had told me usually when it takes longer, they get all that stuff out of their system during the process. But because it was a very quick process for him, he has a lot of that stuff still in his system. And they said he'll be kind of spitty for like the next week to 2 weeks. Alright, well I could keep on going, but go watch our family video about the birthing process, and I will update you next week on how things are transitioning to home with 4. So make sure you subscribe, and we will see you next week. Bye.